Today, we have the privilege of welcoming an individual who stands as a beacon of inspiration in the literary and library domains. Hailing from the heart of Texas, she serves as a district library coordinator for a large central Texas school district, dedicating her energy to ensuring libraries remain as pivotal centers for learning. Co-founding the notable Texas Freedom Fighters, her accolades speak volumes of her contributions. Recognized by the ALA with the Intellectual Freedom Award, she has also been honored with the American Association of School Librarians Intellectual Freedom Award. Furthermore, her upcoming role as the president-elect for American Association for School Librarians in 2024 to 2025 showcase her continued dedication to the field. Further magnifying her impact, People magazine recently celebrated her in the 2023 Women Changing the World portfolio, underscoring her profound influence on communities. Ladies and gentlemen, let us come together and welcome a true luminary in the world of libraries and literature, Becky Calzada.
Thank you, Christopher. That's so amazing. I'm like, who is that person?
Becky, overseeing 44 librarians in a large central Texas school district is no small feat. Can you describe a typical day in your role as district library coordinator?
Sure. So I work at central office. I am a part of the teaching and learning team, so I attend curriculum meetings. I work with my professional learning team. We're actually planning a conference. I support the librarians, and I do that by meeting one-on-one with different individuals. Sometimes I go out to visit. Right now, I'm in the middle of some facilities designs because we are going to be modernizing some of our library spaces, and so I'm partnering with those librarians in our facilities department to make sure that we know what we want to do, we're on the same page. So there's just a lot of things that I do, and of course, as of late, also just of course working with book challenges when those come up, and every once in a while a public information request about things that are happening in our libraries. So it's just a busy day. I mean, there's lots to do and never not enough time.
You ever catch a break?
When I take one, there's just too much to do. So I try to stay really focused. It is not unusual for me to be at work at 7 a.m. or stay until 6 o'clock, but when I'm on a break, I'm on a break, so I, try to have a good balance with that because it's just a lot. Sometimes our brains just need a break so that we can do the work that we need to do.
Yeah. Having worked in this significant position for 12 years, have you seen a role of school librarians evolve and change, especially in the environment of a rapidly digitalizing world?
Oh, absolutely. I think back when I was a baby librarian, 20 years ago, and I remember thinking, oh, this is so exciting. We have 4 computers in the library to look up things on the catalog, right? Not even thinking, what we could be doing today. And so now our libraries have been a hub for access beyond just the books, obviously, because now, yes, we've had print books, but the digital access has included digital books, 24 hours, point of need sort of thing. So a reader can get a book or an audiobook whenever they want. The other thing that I've seen that has been really great is our librarians doing a lot of tech integration support with our teachers, to try to make sure that we're leveraging technology in a way that's going to change the learning in a way that's not so like it's just a substitute for a pencil or a paper, kind of thing, that we really want kids and learners to be creating, to be critical thinkers, and so leveraging that. Also, 2 years ago, we actually passed a bond package, and our libraries were the recipients of a 3D printer and Mac Studio. And so those 3D printers are now in our libraries, and our librarians have gone through training. And so the goal for that was obviously for access, because our students, not all students have a 3D printer at home. And if you have access to a 3D printer, you're probably in a special class, a very specialized class. So what we wanted to do was provide that access point. And so we are integrating 3D printing making within the curriculum in our elementaries. And of course, our kids, are just creative. And so then they come in and they just start basically designing and printing out things. And so our printers are running all the time. In fact, I've heard that there's a line. Our superintendent came to me and said one day, I was over at a middle school campus, and there was a line of kids, and he was asking them what they liked and what was maybe something that was hard for them, and they said waiting, that there's a line and we have to wait for our 3D print. And so he asked if there were extras around, and I said no. I said, but that was the goal, is to drive to build need so that we could get additional printers. That's for just podcasting, movie creation, that kind of thing too. A lot of our campuses do like announcements that are student led. I see our librarians doing these really great things, and I think sometimes even our libraries are the spaces where we start things. For instance, like interactive panels, were launched in a library before they even landed in a classroom. So it's been really great to see, whether it's by piloting some things or even supporting the teachers in the learning within technology.
What have been some of the unique challenges you faced overseeing such a large number of librarians? And how do you handle these challenges to ensure cohesion and the efficient functioning of all the libraries?
So one of the big challenges is being really systematic about the messaging to make sure we're on point and that we're all flowing in the same direction in terms of the dissemination of information. If we aren't saying the same things, that is an opportunity for there to be, questions or concerns or maybe even a misstep. And so what we've done is we've created a document, like for instance, the name of the document is how we select books in our libraries. So very clear and transparent about how we select our books following our policy. We even named the book reviews that we use, telling our community that we will even accept recommendations from students and parents. I think one of the things that we know about these challenges is that communication is key. Our goal is to build trust and to be a partner with our parents. And so being real systematic and intentional about that communication was a challenge, but now everybody knows, and it's not just our librarians know, but our principals know, our assistant principals know, so that if a parent comes in, they know where to go, and they also know that I'm here to support them. I think another big challenge has been lately, just like teachers, there have been a lot of turnover. This year, I actually had 12 positions that I had to fill, and they're all filled. But never have I had a double-digit number of people that are coming on board that I'm onboarding in a year. Usually, it's like 6, 8. But the challenge with that is making sure that everybody feels like they have support. I have always assigned mentors, and I'm a mentor to them too, but I check in a lot. People that are like brand new to profession, I mean, it just takes time. It's like starting over again as a teacher. They have teaching experiences, so it's not the instruction that's hard. It's the day-to-day library sort of things that you have to learn that, come with experience. But the other additional challenge of working in a library, you're the only person. So like if you're on a team, say you're on an elementary team of 5th grade teachers, like you have other 5th grade teachers to talk to, right? When you're a librarian, you're the only librarian on the campus. So the only person you can talk to is another librarian on another campus. And so trying to build in systems so that those librarians have a communication plan. So whether it's text or phone, or they're doing a virtual meeting, or then of course bringing them together to meet up so that they can plan together and just get that support, and of course checking in. I think about how fortunate we are to have such great technology. So we are a Google district, so we leverage obviously Google Chat. Of course, people like to email, but sometimes you just need a just-in-time sort of thing. So chat's running. Sometimes I've got a chat just for like our new hires. I even have a chat for like our second years, because I want them to know I'm still here, but those kinds of things. So I think just the challenge of making sure that everybody feels confident in the work that they're doing, that they can answer their questions, because there's just a huge learning curve, whether it's knowing what to buy, where to go, our procedures and that sort of thing too, or just a simple thing is like, I need that form and I don't know where it is. I mean, just those kinds of things. So that's been another challenge.
The foundation and mission of Texas Freedom Fighters is inspiring. Could you tell us about the moment or event that prompted its creation and your role in its inception?
So when Freedom Fighters launched in November, Texas has just been kind of undergoing a lot of challenges. We already knew that there were people that were reading passages or stringing together sentences at both school board meetings. We knew that books were being removed. At the time, Representative Matt Krause had submitted a list of 800 plus books to school districts and asking them to remove these titles without no rationale about what they were. And he couldn't even explain where this list came from. Our governor was, basically challenging any family in Texas to report a librarian that was, delivering pornography, right? And so it was really frustrating and disheartening to hear all those negative things about fellow professionals that I know are hard workers, that are just passionate about literacy and students. And so one Saturday morning, I was on what was then Twitter, and kind of scrolling through the Texas Ledge hashtag, TXLEGE. So that is our legislative hashtag. And I've always been, big advocate, for libraries. I, as previously as a the Texas Association of School Librarians chair, I would go speak at a committee meeting, email representatives about, maybe about funding or whatever. But anyway, so I was scrolling the hashtag and saw a tweet. Someone was sharing a favorite book of theirs and saying that they were against banning of books. And I saw the tweet and I was like, I wonder what if we shared our favorite books. So I sent that tweet, texted that tweet to Carolyn Foote, my colleague, and we've been friends for a long time, and we'd been chatting a lot about this because we were so frustrated about what was happening. And I said, what do you think if we did a Twitter hashtag takeover one day, and we just, talked about our favorite books? And she's like, oh my God, that'd be so great. And we need a hashtag. And she's like, let's do hashtag FREADOM. And I was like, okay. And the two of us with two others, and we built a how-to, this, this is the plan, this is the goal. Here are some templates and graphics. Here's some templates of things you could say. And we shared them with librarians. We shared them with authors. We shared them with people that we knew. And we told them the date, the time we were going to start. And I remember it was a Thursday, and it was right after the election, because we were talking about the election, saying, should we do it then? Maybe we should wait. And I was at work, and I remember, getting my tweets ready, and I scheduled them because I said I wasn't going to tweet during work time because I was kind of funny about all that. Just making sure that people know that I'm working, right? So I scheduled a tweet at 5 and 5:30 in the morning, and 6, 6:30, 7:30, and then at 8 I did one last one, and I didn't do any more tweeting until after 5. But and then Carolyn was actually in California, and everybody else was also working, and so she literally was on her phone retweeting things. But we saw a couple of tweets in the morning early, but during the day the volume just increased, and before we knew it, we were 6th trending topic on Twitter, which was pretty amazing. And for a long time, it wasn't for just an hour. It was for a chunk of the day, because I think people saw the tweets and decided they wanted to join in. And so, my role was, I had the idea, right? But I think the thing about just the whole idea was I was just, frustrated about just the narrative being so negative. And I wanted, we wanted people to understand the impacts that books can have, in terms of, being able to document our history so that people could learn from them, to be able to learn from characters and build an understanding of the global world that we live in. And so never did we imagine that we would see that many tweets. So it was so exciting to see. And it was just, I couldn't stop looking. I had to keep checking. Just all day I would go oh my God, this is and I would check. And even the tweet, one of the tweets, I had a tweet that I shared about Jerry Craft's New Kid book. It had been retweeted so many times. And it was just crazy to me. But I think, again, by the end of the day, it just told us that, there was people were really seeking some hope, and they were really kind of latching on to the idea of like that books can change lives. And so from that point, we decided we needed to create a website and create a Twitter. And and then the site was born, and here we are, still fighting the fight.
With the increasing number of book challenges faced by librarians today, how does Texas Freedom Fighters support and empower them to stand up for intellectual freedom?
So when we started Freedom Fighters, there wasn't a lot of activity from our professional organizations. And when I say them, I'm referencing the Texas Library Association, I'm referencing American Library Association. I'm a member of both. And I don't think that it was that they didn't want to. It was just still kind of new. And I really think that back then we felt like, oh, it's just going to go away, right? Because that's what usually happens, but it wasn't going away. So for us at the time, the goal was to be able to share information with people, because we kept hearing, what can we do? What can we do? And so we created templates for how to reach out to your school board. We created a template for how to write an op-ed in a newspaper or a letter to the editor. We created talking points because nobody had anything at the time. There was just nothing like that. We curated tweets so that people could know how to, share a tweet or what to do and that kind of thing too. The other thing that we wanted to do was connect people to resources because they didn't know where to go. Like I shared, I've been involved in both the Library Association in Texas and in the national organization for a long time. And so because of that, I've had the great fortune of being able to connect with so many people, and just have a really great extended professional learning network. And so people trusted Carolyn and I, and they would reach out, and we would keep a confidence. If a librarian didn't want to say their name, that's fine, but we might be able to help them navigate, well, maybe consider this or say that. We've also connected reporters to information about, things that might be happening somewhere. They might reach out and say, well, we want to hear more like the librarian's perspective, so we'll connect them with people. Now we have, the different state organizations and the national organizations, like ALA has Unite Against Book Bans, and Texas Library Association has Texans for the Right to Read. And now we just pretty much like are more of a funnel to connect people to information. We take no money. We are not even an official organization. We are true grassroots. We help people that want to know more. I know when the legislative session was on, we reached out to representatives that were pro intellectual freedom and helped with talking points to help them understand what librarians do. So, we want to do those things because, we also recognize that not everybody can know everything, right? But just to be there to ask and to support people, whether it's a librarian or even a representative, in terms of just understanding the work of librarians. Because I think that's the other thing too, is many people don't know the work of librarians. There's not many people that just go around and like tout the work they do. But some of the things that we do now, we present at conferences, help to people to understand how important it is to tell the story of the library, and try to think about ways to leverage the voice of students, because our students, in all of this that's happening, nobody's asking about the kids, their opinions. And these actions and censorship are directly impacting kids. And so we've connected, in our district, we have a banned book club. So it was one of the first to start in the country. So trying to help connect people has been a big part, not just with librarians, but even with students, and help to leverage the voice of students. This is impacting what they have access to.
As someone committed to highlighting the positive work of librarians, could you share a particular success story or instance where you felt especially proud of the impact a librarian under your coordination made in their community?
That's so hard. There's so many. But I'm going to reference something that actually just happened this past week. As I shared earlier, we had a bond pass, and one of the things that we've been trying to do in our libraries is we've always been doing a lot of makerspace work. design challenges and things in the library space. But we recently had a training, so I was able to get some funding to bring in an outside organization to help build some understanding around this. So I was able to bring in a small group of 7 librarians to work with an organization, and we met on Thursday, and they did some learning around design thinking, around the inquiry process. Even though we're just starting, to see them get so excited and understand that the work that they had to do didn't have to be that maybe they were possibly overthinking that what they had to do, and then just learning about specific processes and how that could, just one move could change their practice and how they worked with students, and how that could also increase collaboration with teachers, was just so exciting to see. We took some feedback from them, and one of the things they said, one of them said, he said, I was dreading about coming today. I know I signed up for this, but I was dreading because it's just been a long week, but I got reinvigorated by this, and I'm excited. I want to go back and do these things. And I mean, that's exciting when you see that. So there's more to come, but I'm just not only excited about the librarians, being excited about this learning, but I'm just so curious to see what it's going to look like when it's in front of kids.
As I was crafting questions for this interview, I remembered a childhood book, Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library by Chris Grabenstein, about a group of kids who wins a night at the world's most high-tech library. However, when morning comes, they discover they must solve a series of complex puzzles to find their way out. Was there a particular book that resonated deeply with you and perhaps set you on a path to become first a librarian and later a district library coordinator?
Oh, that's a hard question, Christopher, because I read a lot. I will say this. So there was not one book that made me decide to be a librarian, but I think there was one book that has just always resonated with me. And just to kind of have like a background. So I'm a first generation high school and college graduate. My mom came from Bolivia, and my dad came from Mexico. His mom was born here, but he was born in Mexico, but they eventually met and got married. And so they didn't have much of an education beyond 8th grade. But my mom was passionate about reading. She wanted me to learn to read because she knew that was important. And so she would take me to the public library. So we'd check out books every week, and she would read to me. So I was a big reader. In fact, I would much rather read than play outside a lot of times. In fact, she would say, don't you want to go outside and play and ride your bike, blah, 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 whatever. But I wanted to read my book. One of the books that I read over and over and over again was The Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankenweiler. It's an old book, but it's a story about these kids who run away, and they stay at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they basically live there. What I loved about it was I was just fascinated by these kids going on a journey, and they weren't afraid, and they were eager to explore and learn what was in there. There's a mystery with the files and all, but anyway, and that was another thing too, because I'm a big mystery kind of person. I love a good caper to try to figure out what's going to happen, right? I grew up Little House on the Prairie, but now we know that's not the way they talk about indigenous people. It's not not the best. But I also grew up reading E.B. White. I had the collection of Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little, and The Trumpet of the Swan. And I remember reading The Trumpet of the Swan over and over again. I wanted to be that with that boy. I don't know that it made me want to become a librarian. I didn't even know I could be a librarian until probably I was an elementary teacher in a little school district called Bishop, which is around Corpus Christi. And it was the librarian there. I mean, I was a big reader, so I always brought books into my classroom. I had books all the time. And the librarian noticed that, and she said, you really use the library a lot. And I guess I thought everybody did, but maybe that was just a personal thing. But she asked me, she said, have you thought about becoming a librarian? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, you can go be a librarian. You go to library school. You have to work 2 years, but you can get your library degree. And I was like, well, I can't do that right now because I've got little kids, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to about my 10th year there, I got divorced and moved to the Austin area, and decided at that time that I needed to go ahead and go to library school, which was in the backyard, because apparently UT was the closest school to farthest south to go to library school. So I would go on Monday nights and Saturdays. I would have class, and and here I am. So I didn't expect, I don't know what I expected, but it was just, it's been a great career move. I've loved every minute, but I never would have imagined that I would be doing what I'm doing now, for sure.
Looking forward, what are the primary goals and objectives you envision for the libraries under your supervision, especially in the context of ensuring digital equity?
So equity is so important, and digital equity especially. We talk a lot about that, especially I know during COVID, that definitely rose to the top. We are very blessed in our school district because we're a pretty affluent district, but it doesn't mean we don't have pockets where people, need computers, need access to the internet. Texas is such a big state, and unfortunately, there's a lot of areas where there is no internet access, and that includes even in a large suburban district like Leander, that's so close to Austin and is such a high tech, sort of area. So what we do is we do a lot of collaboration. We definitely watch and pay attention and listen for when kids are having trouble, because we have hotspots that we can share. We are a one-to-one district in our secondary, so our students can take their laptops home, but they can also, because we're on Google, they can also work offline and then come back, and work. And then of course it'll be once they connect and all. But it is a challenge, and so what I try to do, and I don't know that it's really the librarians, is besides encouraging them to pay attention and to be mindful and watchful and to ask more questions if a student's struggling, to see if we can help them with that. But I also in my role look out for opportunities whenever there's funding availabilities to connect with our technology department to say, hey, there's this, how can I help? Can we do to get this going? Because sometimes they don't know about those things. We actually had a librarian during COVID that before we were even allowed to go out, she had a lot of kids that lived remotely, and she was concerned because she knew they didn't have access, and she went with a hotspot to different families and went out and actually took the hotspot with her so she could record if she could get a signal or not, and kind of did some data basically with another parent, because there was also a language barrier. So I think librarians have the great fortune of working with all kids and all teachers, so that gives them a unique window and perspective, and they can see things maybe that nobody else can see. So that's what I try to remind librarians about. It's to be watchful, be mindful. And when you see something, ask more questions, because it might lead you to something that maybe that nobody knew about. So
lastly, as a beacon of support and leadership for many librarians, what advice or message would you like to share with those embarking on a journey in library sciences?
So I would tell anybody that's currently in library school that what we are seeing right now is unprecedented. There is a lot of history regarding book challenges. It's not something that's new. What's new is the length of time and how long it's going on. What's new is also the tactics that are being used. The groups that are pushing are highly organized too. And so what I would encourage any person going to library school is to please, don't give up, and to stay in, because we need new life in the organization and in our profession. I also think too that this is the perfect ground to be learning too. As a student, I know things are expensive, but you can actually go to conferences at a student rate, which is so significantly less, and learn so much with what's happening out in the field, have access to professional journals, and really just do some learning in real time that nobody else. When we talked about intellectual freedom when I was in school, it was well, follow your policies, and this is what a person's supposed to do. This is what you do. It was a very basic, and nobody prepared us for like what happens if somebody reads at a board meeting. No, all these things that we see, right? And so um, I would tell a new person to also remember that while this may feel scary, that this isn't all that we do. Librarians work in the largest classroom of a school, and that's exciting. And not only do they work with students, they work with teachers, and they have the power to impact so many. And so while that may be, censorship might be one component, it's a small component. There are so many amazing things that librarians can do. So don't let the current landscape scare you away from one of the greatest jobs around.
Becky Calzada is a true champion for books and libraries. From leading a team of librarians in her district to her tireless work with Texas Freedom Fighters, she is always fighting for a right to read. Our conversation with Becky today gave us a real look at how important it is to stand up for books and the big role librarians play in our lives. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'll see you next time. Have a good night.